up, fam? Brace yourself. There's some craziness coming. First, let's do a recap of everything that we have seen so far.
Come on, we don't have to worry about this one, right?
Well, obviously you need to take it seriously and do the kinds of things that the CDC and the Department of Homeland Security are doing. But this is not a major threat for the people in the United States, and this is not something that the citizens of the United States right now should be worried about.
That was, of course, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. And if that statement sounds a little odd, you're not alone. He made that statement you just heard on January 21st of this year. The man billed as the nation's top infectious disease expert, telling Americans the virus is nothing to worry about. Quite a contrast to his dire warnings today. And now, Fauci is under fire from President Trump after suggesting this whole thing could have been avoided if President Trump had just listened to his recommendation and taken it more seriously from the start.
Do you think lives could have been saved if social distancing, physical distancing, stay-at-home measures had started third week of February instead of mid-March?
I mean, obviously, you could logically say that if you had a process that was ongoing and you started mitigation earlier, you could have saved lives. Obviously, no one is going to deny that. But you're right. I mean, obviously, if we had, right from the very beginning, shut everything down, it may have been a little bit different. But there was a lot of pushback about shutting things down back then.
Should we be changing our habits, and if so, how?
No, right now, at this moment, there is no need to change anything that you're doing on a day-by-day basis. Then it became clear that we were in real trouble.
When was that? When was that?
Well, that was probably towards the middle to end of January.
That's an interview from Sunday, April 12th, Easter, with Fauci claiming he saw the warning signs all the way back in January. Then.
I don't think this is something that the United States public should be worried or frightened about. I think the risk is very low right now for the United States.
It's not clear, but it sounds like our nation's leading expert on the coronavirus actually has no idea what to expect and is just making this up as he goes. Here is Dr. Fauci outlining his prediction that a major viral pandemic will strike the United States during Trump's administration at a black tie event at Georgetown University in January of 2017.
The topic today is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
All right, so remember how they said if you aren't going to protest, you better stay inside? And you know how they were like, oh yeah, we haven't seen spikes from Black Lives Matter protests. Wait till you see this. Not only did they not spike due to Black Lives Matter, but it's because of people who stayed home. Can you believe this? Honestly, they wrote an article and said this to you. It's amazing. So I'm just going to scroll through it and point out some key things because it's just, at this point, how anyone could take anyone in the media seriously is beyond me. So it's been about 3 weeks, more than 3 weeks, I guess, since the protesting and riots began. And as they went on, people were not participating. And those people who weren't participating were the ones staying home, which were counteracting any effects of the large gatherings, which is odd, right? Because I'm pretty sure that everybody was trying to stay home when this first happened. So how is it going to counteract the effects if we went from everyone staying home to only protesters not staying home? Like, see how that doesn't make sense? Okay. So the coronavirus is spread through close contact with infected individuals, cough, sneeze, talk, or shout. So there's tons of people together talking and shouting, right? Like that's what they were doing. They were not observing the recommended social distancing. Yeah, a lot of them were wearing masks, but if you think they were wearing a mask just because of this pandemic, I don't think so. Because if you looked at any of the other protests, like in Ferguson, they were wearing masks then too, to hide their identity. So there's that. I just don't feel like a lot of them were actually worried about this. So researchers actually found a relative increase at stay-at-home behaviors by those not attending protests after they began in the city, with people really starting to stay at home by the third day of the protests. This is weird to me because I remember when the protest was starting and everything was still locked down. So people weren't supposed to be going anywhere. So, just saying. I wasn't even allowed to enter my school building until the Monday after the riots already started. Just saying. I'm just saying. Just putting it out there. Alright. Anyway. It's certainly possible that there's a small increase in cases among protesting population. But when we look at the population of the country as a net, there doesn't seem to have been a significant spike. I think some of us were concerned that there would be a spike in some cases. He observed many protests where people were wearing masks and being careful. So, basically what they're saying is, we're going to tell you to social distance, and we're going to keep shoving that down your face, and we're going to tell you to wear masks, but if you're protesting, it's fine. Don't social distance, it's okay. You want to take your mask off and keep touching your mask when you're protesting and everything? That's fine. The virus doesn't survive that, guys. Okay? The virus knows when you're trying to do something righteous against oppression that has been going on for hundreds of years. Alright? So, that's when it knows not to spread. But if you stay home now, like they tell you to do and how they're threatening to lock us down again, staying at home could spread it. Just keep up, okay? Keep up with this. We have not seen evidence that the number of new cases identified in Philly is associated with any protest activities. Do you remember a couple videos ago how I showed you that contact tracers aren't even allowed to ask if you were protesting? Interesting, right? Staying inside is the safest way to prevent the spread of COVID-19. If you do go out, our message is to wear face coverings, aka a mask, be diligent about washing hands, and certainly when at all possible, maintain 6 feet of distance from your fellow New Yorkers or citizens, because it really doesn't matter where you are. And from everything I've seen, people are not actually staying 6 feet apart, even when they're pretending to, even when they're in lines. And they're 6 feet apart from people in lines. They're not 6 feet apart from everyone. So I'm just going to say that because you'll see it in another video that's going to come up.
America is locked in battle, waging war against novel coronavirus while fighting a disease that has plagued the country for centuries.
Black people are just tired of having to protest for the same thing year after year after year. It's just like consistent and nothing's changed.
With more than 1.7 million confirmed COVID-19 cases in the U.S., the numbers continue to rise. But so do the crowds, protesters gathering from city to city, doing exactly what health officials have spent months urging them not to do.
We're in the middle of a pandemic right now. We have 2 crises that are sandwiched on top of one another.
All of it leaving little room for social distancing. Now health officials are bracing for a possible spike in cases.
These protests are almost an incubator for coronavirus for a few reasons. Number one, people are in contact with a lot of other people in very close quarters. And number two, they're in contact for a good deal of time, which means that virus can spread back and forth. On top of that, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming and spitting.
The growing unrest is complicating efforts to control the virus. In LA, testing centers were closed over the weekend as protests raged.
The volunteers who staff these centers still do not feel safe coming back to them.
Hands up! Don't shoot! It's a harsh reality. Thousands pleading, value Black lives, the very group COVID-19 is hitting the hardest.
If you were out protesting last night, you probably need to go get a COVID test this week. Because there's still a pandemic in America that's killing Black and brown people at higher numbers.
How much of a risk is it for people who are out there, even those who are wearing masks?
This is a huge risk, whether you wear a mask or not. Even though it does give you a little bit of protection, it doesn't give you full protection.
But many say they're left with little choice.
I can go home, clean myself up, go get tested, make sure I take proper precautions, and do that. But police brutality, I don't know. I don't know what I can't do to not be harassed.
And tonight, Lester, as we look among the crowd, many of the people that I've talked to say they share that feeling. Yes, they say they are concerned about that pandemic. In fact, some people have put on masks trying to protect themselves, but they say that it's equally important that they're here raising their voices.
There's plenty of evidence that you can find everywhere, pictures, so on, showing you how people were packed together doing these riots and protests. So anyway, that kind of video is a little bit of a joke. But anyway, okay, so Speaker Nancy Pelosi said on Sunday that it's long overdue that we have a national mask mandate. So basically what she's trying to say is that the states that opened early and didn't issue a mask mandate are now experiencing spikes, and therefore we can't trust the states to handle it anymore. We're going to have to do everything on a federal level. So expect this to happen as far as the mask mandate, and most likely other mandates too, like national lockdown, national phasing, not letting the governors handle it anymore. Everyone's gonna have to be the same, on the same page. So yeah, I'm just gonna scroll through that. I'm going to show a video because a lot of you are thinking, okay, well obviously this is Pelosi and she wants to control everybody, and of course she would recommend masks, but oh, I love Trump and everyone else associated with Trump and they want to tell us that. Well, check this out.
To open up America again, we laid out a phased reopening plan. Texas took that plan and implemented it here in a safe and responsible way. But there was guidance throughout that applied to all of the phases. And chief among them was that people should continue to practice good hygiene, that wash your hands, avoid touching your face, and wear a mask wherever it's indicated, or wherever you're not able to practice the kind of social distancing that would prevent the spread of the coronavirus. And we would strongly reiterate that today. I know that roughly half the state is under local ordinances. Strongly recommend if your local officials in consultation with the state are directing you to wear a mask, we encourage everyone to wear a mask in the affected areas. And where you can't maintain social distancing, wearing a mask is just a good idea. And it will, we know from experience, will slow the spread.
So there you go. So apparently at Target, you can try on a mask and then put it back if you don't want it. And someone else can come and try on the mask and put it back if they don't want it. And this cycle could continue because who cares, right? I mean, you can't get within 6 feet of a person, but you can try on the mask that someone else has tried on their alleged infected areas. But that's fine. So if you test positive, it could be from COVID. It could mean that you had COVID in the past. It could mean that you had a different strain of coronavirus. They don't know. And also, they don't even know if you'd be immune to it because it's a joke. So then look at this thing. Someone's girlfriend's brother-in-law went to get tested even though he had no symptoms, because why would you? And they called the 20-some people he named, and because he hadn't gotten tested and he was included in those 20-something people, they were like, okay, well, we're just going to mark you down as positive. Now you can see why the numbers keep spiking so dramatically. Because again, it's a joke. Like everything else. But don't ask them if they were protesting. Probably can't name everyone you were near if you're protesting, right? So what I think is missing from this one is the whole joke about, you don't wear a mask to protect you, you wear a mask to protect me, as if the masks work. So I'm going to show you a video, and in this video there's testing for what they would do if they had a pandemic with a virus. Watch how they dress and how they handle people when they think it's a real virus. Kind of interesting.
With a growing concern over the notion that chemical and biological weapons were unaccounted for and could potentially fall into the hands of terrorists, the Department of Defense wanted to test the nation's readiness for such an emergency. In June 2001, the DoD conducted a war game called Operation Dark Winter.
Dark Winter was a major exercise that was done prior to 9/11, earlier in 2001, to look at the effects of a biological terror event. And it was kind of a scary scenario. We would lose a lot of people if a really effective bioterror event occurred.
The simulation evaluated the government's ability to respond and communicate with the public, and the exercise even included mock news reports.
Since the diagnosis of 20 smallpox cases in Oklahoma City 12 days ago, hundreds have now died, thousands have become infected.
We had to, think about things like, quarantines and martial law, and things like that. All of a sudden, our system wasn't our system anymore because we had this terrible thing going on, and we had to change. We had to, change the way we thought about things. We had to change the way the military interrelated with the civilian world, and it was really an eye-opener.
And the conclusion were tens of millions of deaths, no commerce between states, no airplanes flying for 6 months, and war between Oklahoma and Texas.
Today, the world is confronting a public health emergency unlike any we've seen in over a century. We are facing a highly transmissible and deadly virus which not only claims lives but also disrupts the very foundations of our society. The American healthcare system is being taxed to the limit. Our economy is spiraling downward, and our population is being paralyzed by fear stemming from a lack of a coordinated response and a dearth of accurate, clear communication about the path forward. Our window of opportunity is closing. If we fail to improve our response now, based on science, I fear the pandemic will get worse and be prolonged. There will be likely a resurgence of COVID-19 this fall. It'll be greatly compounded by the challenges of seasonal influenza. Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history. 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
Interesting, right? This is getting out of hand. It's your meme for the day. I'm going to be showing you this quick video showing you how the virus apparently can only go person to person between 6 feet apart if it's someone in front or in back of you, but not next to you. Because someone can walk right next to you and that's fine, even if it's less than 6 feet. But if someone's less than 6 feet in front or behind you, you're going to get sick and die. Just funny stuff. It's so stupid.